Pretty sure that's one of their albums, like Heaviest Bloom or something. Body Snatcher.
Oh, okay. I was like, story so far, so I was like, we just kind of switched up. I feel like I should hold this candle under me the whole time, like I'm ominous.
Tell a campfire story.
And then just inhale the fumes that are fucking sitting on my nose right now.
It'd be great if, like, occasionally you put up a s'more.
That's actually all I do. I don't talk the whole episode. I just
eat s'mores.
I just and like fucking hot dogs and just other campfire foods.
The whole episode, you keep burning the marshmallow too much, and then finally at the end, you have it.
And you're like, yeah. And every time I get close,
you take it off. Start
the new one on. Dude, we should do that, kind of like how Joe Bob does the fucking. He has that like not like a Yule log, but like a ghoul log.
Yeah.
Deal. We should do something like that. That'd be fucking dope. But I don't know how we're gonna do that. Dang him, bro. Oh shit! What if I just join the Twitch as a viewer? Just start commenting and shit. Like,
great job. Yeah, you guys are the best.
Yeah, I just start shit post myself. Tyler doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
What's up with that guy's old?
That guy's a fucking idiot. Yeah, what's he doing?
What's he on, a 2015 MacBook over there?
Like, that's exactly what I'm fucking amateur hour, dude. Well, Caleb, me too. Yep. Caleb, you hit the intro, buddy, because we might as well start clear with this. So we'll get shitty auto through me like. God, purple. I like purple. Fuck. No, it's not fun. No. Can I get an orange? Maybe an orange. I like orange. Okay. Sweet.
Caleb looks like he's in a 70s adult film set.
It's the fucking drummer for Foghat.
It's the mustache chops that like he's at it.
Yeah. Just come in, start singing Slow Ride for me as we enter this podcast.
You guys would understand if you went and saw X, you would get it.
Oh yeah, true. That's a good. Oh. Actually, that's a good call.
Wow, I got energy here.
Oh, dude, you're fucking hype. You guys work tomorrow?
Yeah, I do, but this is also, I just had my podcast for just an hour and a half before this.
Oh, fuck yeah, so you're like in prime time.
I'm moving, bro, I'm fucking getting shit.
Dude, yeah. Fucking knocking things out.
I'm out here hustling.
Bro, I fucking hustle. You guys know about NFTs?
Not an NFT person, but I'm not spending tons of money on an ape.
No. Me neither. I missed the crypto boat. I might as well just miss the NFT boat. So
there should be a Lucio Fulci NFT though.
I wonder if there is. There's gotta be. I feel like maybe not though. Maybe we should jump on that bandwagon. Our NFTs.
Somebody.
Has anyone thought about that?
Right. I'll be out here on that right now.
Yeah, is this streaming? Fuck. Did I just give our thought? Did I give our idea? God.
Oh, some Twitch kids are like, let's get this going.
Fuck. Throw my idea right out from under me.
It's a bad idea, Tyler. We should not.
Horrible.
I don't think that'll make any money out.
Yeah, anybody who does that's a fucking idiot.
Why would you do that?
I'm gonna just start fucking shit posting right now. Terrible
Yeah,
idea.
type bad idea.
Don't do it. Don't listen to that guy. I heard he's got a lot of student loan debt. What? Fuck it, we're live. Wow. I'm Tyler, coming in with shit fucking audio like an amateur for the newest member of the team's first episode. This is how we break them in over here at Tapehead. This is, where it's not a cakewalk. You got to really pay the toll to get to the boys' hole.
Exactly.
Stop myself.
Getting smacked with the paddle. Thank you, sir.
That's-
Can I have another? Thank
Yes.
you, sir.
That's
Can I have
That's
another?
it.
But yes,
Yeah,
everyone,
we're actually-
welcome Chris to the show. This is
Woo!
he's been on the episode we did a little while back with the stuff, and longtime friend and longtime horror lover. So it makes sense. So everyone, welcome Chris to the show. Hello, buddy.
I'm fucking stoked to be here. Thank you, guys. And no better episode to kick off my first one with than this one.
Oh, dude, I can't agree more.
True. It's true. Well, Chris, I feel like did we kind of do an introduction on the episode of this stuff? We kind of walked through your horror history, if I'm not mistaken, correct? A little bit,
I mean,
to some degree.
I think we covered like the first movie that ever scared the shit out of me. Basically, I think we talked about that, but I think that was really about it. There's really not too much to say. I mean, I started collecting physical media within the last couple of years and built up. My girlfriend and I built up a hell of a collection. So that's what I do over on Instagram. Just kind of collect really awesome fucking horror physical media and love it. Obsessed with it. So
Yeah.
Feel that.
You know what? I think it's fair too, though. I think we should get your take on Monster Mania because you were with us, and we had to speak for you. So, and you went technically twice. You did like a tour de force. You went not once but twice through that whole thing. So, how about this? Tell us a little bit about your time prior to us, and then because we covered the bases with what we did, but we'd love to hear your little rundown.
Yeah, so my girlfriend actually grew up going to Monster Mania, and every single year it comes around twice. We go to both of them. It's usually either her and I, or us and her brothers. Usually, this year was really awesome because the past couple of years there really hasn't been many conventions. We did have one last year, but there was all kinds of restrictions, and it just didn't feel like Monster Mania. So this year we went really early. We got there at like 10 o'clock as soon as doors open, and blew hundreds of dollars within a couple minutes of being in there.
As one
Yeah,
does.
dude. We walked in and went right to the left because that's where Vinegar Syndrome sets up their table every year. Instantly, $70, and then got out of room number one. We got to the back area, and then it was a couple of titles I picked up at Diabolic. I spent like $100 at Diabolic,
Nice.
and then when I was going to meet up with you guys and go, Erica was like, "You should spend more money," and I was like, "Okay, I will." So spent more money with you guys.
And how do you say no to that, right? Like, hey, spend more money. Be like, no, I'm financially stable. I don't do that. No, you got to spend it, dude. That's free reign. That's like a hall pass financially,
Dude, she says that because we don't do much stuff like that. Like we don't really go out with intention of spending money too much. So for us to go out to Monster Mania, it's kind of like a treat to ourselves. We just pull a ton of cash, and I actually really hate that all those vendors take cards because I usually restrict myself with the cash.
It's so easy, dude. You just charge it to the game. You're not even thinking about it. You're just like, oh, I spent $350 and only came in thinking I was going to spend $150, and then there you are.
That's what was funny. We stopped and pulled money on our way there, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna be a little bit. I'm gonna take it easy this year. I pulled like $250, and I turn around and my girlfriend's like, oh, how much did you pull? I'm like, yeah, $250. She's like, oh, I pulled $350.
Oh.
I'm like, oh.
Here we go.
Yeah, there he is, and just blow it all. Yeah, that's I've yet to because I got Annie Lee's meat pies I think through Vinegar Syndrome, which by the way, was it Jennifer? Was that her name? I know we brought her up last episode.
We brought her up last episode. We talked about her a little bit.
I don't know. I think I could talk about her I could talk about her every episode. I hope she's listening, Jennifer. I know I'm not whoever the guy is that you're probably with that was running Paul Bear on the other side, but I'm a pretty cool guy. Hey, listen,
I'm a cool guy. I'm an all right guy.
I think you guys were the same height too.
That's what I'm saying, dude. I mean, and look at this wall behind me, huh? Let's talk about that guy's got a fortune back here. Look at this
crown molding.
Yeah, I did. Good morning, Julie. Good morning, Jennifer.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I wound up spending too much money. And one thing I wanted to tell you guys that I don't think maybe I did. Maybe I said something in the chat. I don't know. But speaking of Paul Bear Press, I spent a fuck ton of money this last week on horror merch. I ordered like everything that I wanted to get at Paul Bear at Monster Mania that they didn't have in my size. I just ordered it online, and
sick.
I wound up spending like $250 on their site, and then I went on Gutter Garbs and I got a couple things on there. I went on Cavity Colors, I got a couple things on there. I went on Fright Rags, but I really didn't see too much on there. And then I went on I got Shut Up Bad Taste Boys. They put out merch just a couple days ago, and
Yes,
I ordered a
did.
shirt from them.
Well, I'm gonna have to get on that.
Oh
Do
yeah,
you, okay,
definitely.
Here's a question, and maybe Bad Taste Boys, if you guys are listening, you can walk me through. Again, anything that deals with technology, I'm like clearly fucking illiterate over here with these fucking jangly boys on. But do you have to have a PayPal in order to pay via said PayPal, or can you do it another way? I was trying to figure it out, and mind you, when I mean I was trying to figure it out, I took all of 7 minutes and was like, there's no way, I can't do it. But do you have to create a PayPal account in order to pay through PayPal?
Yes.
Fuck.
Dude,
All right.
it's easy as hell.
We have a
Is it?
PayPal.
We do?
We have a PayPal.
Oh, shit. Oh, fuck.
Yeah, I made us a PayPal when we LLC'd ourselves.
Listen, if anybody's even remotely listening to this fucking podcast, they know I'm the one asleep at the wheel half the time. Caleb's running the fucking show.
No, but listen, funny you say that because I'm the one that's physically asleep at the wheel when I go to work at 5 a.m. every day. It's not good. It's really not.
Dude, it's not, well, listen, that's the crazy part. I mean, when you talk about driving, especially when you're in like the throes of a long work week, like I'm sure you guys relate. Like if I'm driving to work, there's, especially when you do it over and over again, are there times where you just like fucking, it's like a brownout. It's not a full blackout, but you're just like 20 minutes down the road and you're like, what, how the fuck did I get here?
Bro, so I drive an hour, and
Oh shit.
90% of that ride is 55. So I take 55 all the way to the end to 42. And there are times where in between, especially if I'm driving home, I'm like, man, I could have fucking killed somebody. I have no
dude, it's so scary.
And 55 and 42 arguably are some of the my least favorite highways I've ever been on in my entire life.
Well, 55 trips me out because I'll kind of look around and I'll be like, okay, cool, I'm around this exit, and then a couple miles later, it looks like that again, and I'm like, did I just go a fucking circle and I'm driving straight? What the hell?
You just portaled back to the same place on 55.
I know.
Yeah.
It's like Nightmare on Elm Street 4. And they're doing the time loop over, and they keep running through the truck over and over.
Yeah, it's literally like. But I mean, 55 it has its own talk about paranormal stuff. I mean, there's like around exit 53 where you're kind of going into like Pittman in that area. Like millions of not millions, but plenty
billions
billions
people have died.
Yeah, but like, all right, like fucking 12, which in our world is like that's a lot for one area. But you know, you got the mental hospital right there too. So I've seen people from Ancora. I saw a girl in a dress, like in a full gown from Ancora, like walking the road, like in like a wedding dress almost. And, like that's what it looked like she was wearing, like just in a full suit. I saw a guy with like, I thought he was a ghost. Mind you, I'm going like 85 on the left-hand lane south on 55. And the dude's walking backwards with his body facing traffic. But he's in like this white, like coveralls, but they're black, like striped almost. It looks like he was out of like the 1920s Great Depression, like suffering from tuberculosis, and he just came out of a fucking ward. Like, but he had a pillow with him, and like I zoomed right by him, dude. It was mad creepy.
Oh my god,
it's
dude.
all the ghosts of people that you've hit unknowingly in those brown spots when you're driving home. Like they're haunting you.
They're haunting you now.
100%, dude. 100%. Like they just, dude. Oh, that'd be a great horror movie theme if, like, literally, like, think about that, because there's people with fucking like narcolepsy and shit. Like, who's to say you're driving and you don't fucking somebody one time? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then they're fucking like. They follow you everywhere, and like you look outside your window, and they're standing there like Michael Myers. You know what I mean? I don't know. Good thought.
Tyler,
Good thought.
Somebody, Ed No Go in chat says that he saw the same fucking guy.
No way.
Oh,
yeah, he's a local guy. I'm friends with him. He said that
I was like,
guy.
Is he that guy?
I
Actually,
am
I'm that guy.
Oh
Fuck!
yeah, that was me, bro.
I'm fucking out.
funny story. I actually went to Slabtown Road a couple weeks ago. I was
Did
shooting there.
anything happen?
No, it was during the day.
Okay.
Went there to hang out and shoot, and the lady on the corner called the cops.
Yeah, no, they
Which
always
she
do.
does.
They always do.
Is
Yeah.
it the Richie Rich one?
It's the one on the corner, the big house like up on the hill.
Oh yeah,
Like
it
on
kind
the
of
other
slides
side
back.
of the bridge. Yeah.
The house across the street used to be, it was abandoned, and that's where I would park, or that's where we would park.
Yeah.
Now someone lives there. They rebuilt that house.
So okay, that's funny you know that. So my grandparents live a half mile down the road from Slabtown. So they're Fox's Mill. So if you go past Slabtown, there's the little side road on your right. That's what leads you back to Daretown Lake. So they live right on that corner there.
Yeah, so for anybody listening, we are all based out of New Jersey, and New Jersey has its own zine called Weird New Jersey. There's a lot of like paranormal phenomenon that gets reported within the magazine and creates tourist attractions and things like that. And we actually have a few of them local to us. Slabtown Road is one of them that's always notorious for like orbs and noises within the woods. There's like a trail that you walk back. Has some history to it, you know.
It's creepy too because that's that one section of the road. The trees kind of canopy over top of the road, and it goes from like
aesthetically, it's a wild looking place.
It is.
Well, we went, Caleb, if you remember, we went with a large group years ago. We're talking probably a decade ago.
Yeah.
And when you when you park on one side of the bridge, when you walk to the other, that's where the orbs are all over the bridge. But when you walk to the other side, we heard this great. It sounded like somebody screaming.
It really
and
did.
Then, half of us went back over the bridge, and Caleb and a couple others stayed on that side of the bridge, and the noise continued, and we didn't fucking hear it on our end. They came walking back over the bridge, and they're like, "Man, that's crazy! It's still going." And we're like, "Wait, we didn't hear a fucking thing over there."
Yeah, that shit was wild. Yeah,
dude, I didn't know that. So that's funny. That's so cool. I never really thought about that with Slabtown, but I took people there all the time because. I don't know. I mean, especially when we're like us, where you kind of have an affinity for the creepy.
Yeah.
It's just like you just kind of you're just drawn to it. So for me, for Slabtown, I was like, when I heard about that, just through my family, because my mom lived close by, and there was always the lure from it. So what I always did was I brought groups of people with me. We would park on that little side there where you can go to like people fish, and we would walk it all the time. Dude, I've had like 3 first dates there. With girls,
it's not a bad spot. I mean, if they're into it, it's cool, you know.
Yeah, it's
Tyler's like, I have 3 charges.
Yeah, there's actually 3 There's 3 missing bodies. That's kind of. I don't know what that's about. Accidental drowning. Whoops.
That's amazing. But then, funny enough, my mom actually lives on the opposite side of Muttontown Woods. Which Muttontown Woods has a bit of a history because that was the last known legal hanging in New Jersey for like criminals. And then so like the lore there is that like, you know, they are all trapped in like this like purgatory state within those woods. And it's a very weird, if you look up Muttontown Woods on like Weird New Jersey, anybody listening, you go in and do that. It's pretty wild because they have like you'll see it's just a very small square patch of woods, and then it's just open fields around that whole area. And
there's the intersection too, right?
It's an intersection. It's a 4-way, you know, fucking crossroad, whatever the fuck you want to call it. And it's a very small patch of square woods, and then it's an open fields all around it. So, but yeah, I mean, this is going to be one thing that we want to implement within the show, especially having Weird New Jersey. Just talking about like some paranormal stuff, just because like it's fun and interesting. You know, even if you don't really buy it or believe into it, it's just like it's kind of cool to like talk about. You know, because I mean, there's definitely been tons of stories, especially the one that was written up about like the Woodstown Hotel. Like that just seemed like total bullshit. Like it, like just like how it was written, it was written like total like just cliche vibes shit. It was just like, and a man was standing cloaked at the bar. It was just like,
yes. Well, it's also, it was like the written version of what you'd fucking see on like Ghost Hunters, where you're like, did you hear that?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's some dude just accidentally farted in the corner, and you're like, oh, no, it's fucking.
Don't worry, it's just Willie. He's drunk.
Yeah, but no, that reminds me for next episode. I think it'd be cool to take a little piece out of it because I grew up like Slabtown, like Muttontown. Which, by the way, Muttontown, the story I heard akin to that was there was a drag racing event because they used to do them all in the 70s.
Well, yeah, that used to happen a lot there as well.
Yeah, my pop, God rest his soul, that a baby was killed there in the back seat of an actual race where an accident occurred, and you could still
Jesus.
and if you roll out to the intersection, you could turn the lights off, roll your windows down. Apparently, you can see. I think I've heard you could see orbs, and you could hear the baby crying. Those are the two big things,
Oh,
which is
God.
Have
wild.
you guys done Echo Ghost?
No,
No,
but
but I've
somebody in
heard of
chat
that
just
though.
talked about Echo Ghost.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
cool.
so my stepdad grew up in Echo
Okay.
and always wanted to go there, but supposedly there's these, I don't know if they're locals or what, but they actually hide out back in the notoriously haunted areas of Echo, and they will fuck your shit up. Like my dad told me very explicitly, he grew up his entire life there. He's like, do not go to these spots because people, tourists technically, would go park their car and then there would be just kids waiting in the woods with baseball bats, beat the shit out of the car. People have died like or
Oh,
got severely injured at some of these ghost spots because the locals know. And most of that shit's private property too. I think some of those areas. So
yeah, sure. And Atco, man, Atco is out there. That should be its
Yeah.
moniker. Atco is out there.
we're out
It's
there.
out there.
Yeah. Atco is out there. But that's the other thing I wanted to bring up on the next episode, which would be cool. We should try and see if we could tour it. Which now I've just opened us up for so many legal things if we do it. Barry's Chapel. Barry's Chapel.
Yeah.
The old church in Quinton. That was I believe it was an African American church in the 20s and 30s, and it burned down. So there's all like unmarked graves and shit. But they've always said it was haunted. I mean, back
Shit.
to when my parents were in high school and middle school. So it'd be cool
Well,
to
you know what?
touch on that.
It's a really cool link because think of horror movies and where the lore for them come from. It comes from all this kind of stuff. You know, it's such a good link
Oh yeah,
between horror movies and the paranormal.
transition
It
upon
is. It is.
transition.
Yeah.
Transition upon transition, Chris. I fucking love this, dude. Thank God you're our third. Fucking well, so I looked up the folklore of zombie, the word zombie,
Mm.
and speaking of zombie,
Zombie.
but it's actually Haitian folklore that kind of, in some way, shape, or form, from the 1700s that stems from voodoo. Is where that came from specifically, and it kind of ties into like slavery and slaves of Haitian descent actually wanting to like commit suicide to get out of the basic purgatory that their lives were in, but that they were afraid they would come back to life after the fact. So that's kind of where that, not the word itself zombie comes from, but the idea of the living dead comes from, that then got formulated
Yeah.
into zombie.
Cool.
But they say the historic back point of that is, I think it was Romero was actually the first person to use the word in its form as we know it now, zombie, in Dawn of the Dead, which leads us into Zombie or Zombie 2. So
Yeah, I
pretty
think
cool
it's
shit.
interesting too because if you go to New Orleans, there's a heavy culture of that there with voodoo
Yeah.
and zombie
Oh,
and
yeah.
stuff like that. I think that's one of those places that you kind of where that originates from. They believe in all that kind of stuff over there. But yeah, I know zombies. I know the history of zombies or the history of the dead. Rising, I think started in like the 30s and 40s in actual film, but no
Yeah.
word. There was no word to describe it. It was just the dead
Now,
rising.
and this is just a thought that came into my head when I was reading about that, but I wonder, because Mummy and Zombie, are they the same thing? Are they two separate entities entirely? That's a whole different little
I think
genre
technically you
within a
could say
genre.
Frankenstein
Yeah.
too.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Because
Yeah,
he was
he
dead
kinda-
and put together. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That's a good
Yeah.
point. Wow. We should fucking. I almost. You know what's funny? I almost did an honors thesis for American Studies, which shows you, just great choices in life that I had with all that student loan debt, fucking American Studies degree. Yeah,
All
it's great.
paid off.
Oh, it's all paid off, guys. Right here, right now. This is what it was leading toward. But I almost wrote a thing about like, it was a thesis about what scares people, or like what the fear of like the monsters, the mythical creatures came from, but specifically zombies. I thought was a pretty cool one to like kind of hone in on, because it comes from different things. There's like the nuclear warfare side of zombies, and like the apocalyptic side of what could happen with zombies. slavery, obviously, that I mentioned back in the 1700s. So it's a pretty cool thing, and I don't know. I mean, to your point, Chris, I don't know how much it gets mentioned in the lore of like the werewolf Dracula. Again, Frankenstein's kind of its own
Yeah, the
thing.
monsters. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool though that George Romero kind of coined the word, at least how it's phrased in the world of horror too, which I thought was pretty dope. And that late, like 1970, what? Dawn of the Dead came out in 78, 79?
9. Dawn
Eight.
of the Dead, you said?
Dawn of the 78,
8,
right?
yeah.
Because Zombie
Yeah.
was 79. So
Well, it's interesting. Like the history of Zombie, like Fulci's Zombie, is crazy too because Dawn of the Dead was cut in Italy by Dario Argento for the Italian release. The film got sent over there. Dario Argento took it over for editing, and he was the one who worked with Goblin for the soundtrack of it. And basically, at that time, film studios were just hopping on whatever was popular. So they saw studios over there kind of saw earlier cuts of Dawn of the Dead and were like, "Man, this thing's fucking great. We need to hop on this wagon." And a studio had the script for Zombie, and that's how Fulci got involved. And it was crazy because in the span of 2 years, you have George Romero's Dawn of the Dead hits the scene. You have Argento's cut of Dawn of the Dead hitting Italy, and then you have Fulci releasing at the time Zombie 2, because they like technically, I think they like technically almost were treating it like a sequel, like an unattached sequel.
Yep.
So it's real crazy because even still now, I think there's 7 zombie entries, the films that are out that are just sequels that have no attachment. One is Killing Bird, Zombie 5.
Yeah.
And then, so it's really crazy how this movie. Can you imagine being an audience in 1978, 79, and just like, what the fuck's happening?
Trying to keep up with the meta of zombie movies.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even if they, and I mean, a lot of them probably didn't even well, to your point, I mean, how many people actually, when they went to view Zombie, associated it with Dawn of the Dead? Because they're just separate movies in their own right. And if you didn't know the back story of that, and especially in 1979 with how little information they had then compared to us now, how many of them knew that, which I think is pretty interesting, overall.
Well, it's interesting because Zombie, technically, if you watch Zombie, it could play out like a prequel to Dawn of the Dead because at the end of Zombie, you have New York being taken over.
Yeah.
So I guess you could technically link them in a very loose way.
Yeah, sure. You definitely could. And I wish, man, might as well get into it, right? With Zombie, I think what's so cool about that movie for me is, especially and I've seen bits and pieces of the film prior to, but I've never seen it altogether. This was really my second watch technically today. But those New York City shots, man, they were so fucking cool, especially on the water, like it was where they did sort of that aerial, like helicopter, like viewpoint, almost like you were the police themselves, into the actual them seeing the zombie come up from underneath. What do you actually call that on a boat? I am not good with boat terminology.
On what?
Starboard. The fucking
cabin?
Thank you. Yeah, that was
cabin.
the cabin. Yeah, that's a hard word, Tyler. You fucking idiot. Cabin, dude. The cabin underneath, and zombie comes up. But even that viewpoint of the zombie, like turning and walking toward the police officer with the backdrop of the bridge in New York City as a whole, so fucking cool. And the only thing I could think about that whole time, and that especially that initial scene, is like, because anyone who's been across the Hudson River on like the ferry or anything, you do get if you have decent vision, you can kind of see what's being made out on each side of the Hudson River. So like, I wonder like what, like somebody fucking biking along the Hudson River sees with this like fucking thing, just like walking the boat.
Yeah. Like, what the fuck is going on? There's like helicopters circling. Like,
yeah, and they're like, but you know what? I mean, New York, they're just probably so like indoctrinated to that. They're like, oh, it's just another fucking thing, a movie. Meanwhile, I would be fucking mind boggled. That also gets me to the story on how I saw James Franco in Manhattan, but that's a whole different story for a whole different day. Day.
That's what's crazy because Zombie was Fulci's first horror movie. So when I was rewatching Zombie, I remember thinking like, this movie's technically so fucking well done. Like there are shots in this movie that are incredible, like beyond the effort most people are going to put into zombie movies. There is a very particular shot in the graveyard that I love when the zombies start rising, and it stays on the one character's face as she slowly turns to
Oh
look
yeah.
behind her, and the hand comes up and the body starts rising.
Yeah, so
And I
good.
just remember thinking, like, holy shit, Fulci put so much into this movie, and it makes it so much more effective.
Yeah.
Now is that where, because that particular scene, that's where they're basically traveling throughout the woods after, basically after the point that they get to Matul Island,
Mhm.
and you know they kind of. Now the only thing I get a little where it got a little gray for me through the watch is the doctor, specifically Dr. Menard, played by Richard Johnson. I think I must have missed the boat twice now. I don't know how I did this. What, I know he was treating patients on Matul Island with the sickness that obviously turned them into zombies, but did he? I couldn't. Again, from the watch, I couldn't figure out whether he played a part in that or was just unbeknownst to him treating patients that ended up becoming zombies, and he was just in the thick of it, or did he have an ulterior motive? Because I missed that part, to be frank, with Doctor Menard.
I think it depends because his wife makes a reference on his experiments.
Right.
But then you also have the voodoo that's occurring as well. Now, you could also look at it as maybe he was keeping them alive, and that's what she was referencing as experiments because he's studying them as opposed
Sure.
to just putting them down. To be honest with you, that was a plot point that kind of shot by me as well. I remember halfway through, I'm thinking like, I don't think this guy made them unless I missed something
Yeah.
that Caleb picked up.
No,
I
but
mean,
because you
yeah,
remember
that's good.
there's the scene where he draws his own blood too and puts it under the microscope, and I'm like, is he like mixing normal human blood and like zombified blood? Like, that's the part that kind of I think it just shot over me a little
Yeah,
bit.
I don't think he like created this. I think maybe it was something that he discovered because they talk about like the voodoo element, and I think he was noticing that like bodies were coming back to life, and he was maybe
Yeah.
trying to figure out like if there was something in their blood. So I think he drew blood from himself, put it on another specimen's blood to see if it would react a certain type of way or infect, you know, his own bloodstream, something along those lines. That was
Yeah.
kind of like the vibe that I got from it because it doesn't have like that like Reanimator vibe or
Mhm.
like
Right.
you know, like even like Resident Evil to have like a more like modern take on it where like there's like, you know, scientists are creating something. That's not really like what it seemed like
Or
this
Day of the
doctor.
Dead, even.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, or Day, correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Well, one
know.
thing I definitely want to hit on is so going through this movie from beginning to end, how crazy the opening of this movie is.
It's so
How you just
sick.
have this shot of a wrapped up body in a white sheet rising. Well, it starts with the shot of the gun. You see the barrel of the gun, the body
Yep.
starts to rise. You get a wicked practical effects headshot,
But
and
like
then
it looks like the
he
yeah,
just says ready to guess, like the boat can go now. And you're
yeah,
just like, what is happening? And then you're introduced to a boat that's empty.
right.
Yeah.
And Coast Guard is called because this boat almost got hit by another ship. And I just remember thinking, man, this goes just right into it. There's no
Oh,
holdover here.
no, yeah, no build up at all. I mean, it throws you immediately in because yeah, after the gunshot and he says his line, I think it even goes right into the. Is the opening credits right after that, or is it after the boat scene in which they kill the zombie and then he falls into the Hudson and then it goes into credits, like opening
Um
credits? I can't remember.
I think the credits roll after the gunshot. I'm pretty sure.
I thought so too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
because
pretty
it's like
sure.
yeah, it boots you in. It
Yeah,
boots you
yeah,
in.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then because to your point, Chris, right? Because that's just two wicked scenes right up front. The gunshot to the head,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get the graphic. It almost looks like the eyeball comes out of his head. Who we come to find out who that person was.
Yeah.
Um, but and then you get the whole boat scene. He gets his fucking throat. The police officer goes to the cabin, gets his throat chewed out. That's another thing I've noticed too. And as we get more into like Italian films, for at least for me anyway, which you know I don't have much involvement there, but they're really focused on the throat. I've noticed, and especially Fulci, specifically in this film, there's a lot of throat close-ins, close-ups, I should say, with the
I
fucking
think
blood coming out. So it's
I think
interesting.
too though, this was still in a revolution of practical effects. Like you have
Yeah.
Italian Giallo films doing a lot of interesting stylistic stuff, but this was right when Savini is doing Dawn of the Dead, and he's really doing
Yep.
tons of new effects and new styles and stuff. So I think this is
Yeah.
right at the peak of the kind of the revolution of practical effects. And at that point, I think neck appliances were the easiest and the most effective to pull off because most of the kills by the zombies in the movie, for the exception of the feeding scene, they're all neck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. It's true.
So
But it's also, it's just, for me anyway, as a viewer, like the neck and the eyes, it's just because they're such vulnerable. I mean, and if you also think of the human body and like a warrior mentality, the neck is one of the most vulnerable places you can get somebody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
yeah.
it's also just one of those things that just makes you cringe like immediately when you watch it.
Oh
So it's
yeah.
very effective. It's very effective that way.
Funny
Um,
story. So I want to ask this to you guys because I know mine. So my introduction to zombie when I was a kid, Arrow in the Head, the Joe Blow Horror News Network. I don't know if you guys remember arrowinthehead.com. So
No.
they were like the bloody disgusting of the 20 like early 2007, 2005, like that
Okay.
era. And they were posting horror news. They used to have something called the Kill of the Day. And all 5 days of the week they would upload a kill from a horror movie. And they had a database on
wow.
there. And I would just go on and watch all of the clips. And they had the splintering eye scene
Yeah.
on there. And I remember
Yeah.
thinking, like, oh my fucking God. And even now, watching that scene, that it pulls off the difference between her and the dummy head that they use so well that it tricked
Yeah.
me again. Like I was watching it and I'm like, oh my fucking God. I'm like, how the hell did they do that? Especially the rip.
Yeah.
Dude,
Dude.
it's such a brutal scene. And I can't watch it. Like I actually, it's one of the, and I don't mind any real kills. Like I can pretty much stomach anything, but that particular it fucks with me every time. Like the first, because it's not that I haven't seen that kill before. Because funny enough, the first time I saw it was, and this had to be probably around the same time period, 06, 07, 08 ish, going online. And what kickstarted my whole fascination with horror was Bravo's. It was like the scariest movie moments in
I remember
history,
that.
and they used to do it every Halloween. And it was kind of on the
Mhm.
same. I would toggle between that and AMC all the time. Like it was
Yeah.
just it was the routine for the month of October. But at one year, it kicked me off to go like, I just want to see what else is out there and what other people think of other horror movies. And it was some weird like forum of some sort that was just ranking them. And right before it was the Hitcher, the Finger, and the French Fry.
Mhm.
But then right after that was exactly that kill, and I couldn't watch it then. Watching it like 5 days ago for my first like full view through, couldn't watch it. Like it still fucks with me. For like I can't do eyes. That's like my no go zone.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at this now. Gianetto De Rossi is who I'm butchering the name probably.
I liked it though.
That's who did the special effects in Zombie. And I'm looking at the catalog of movies they've worked on, and a lot of Italian stuff that I'm very unfamiliar with. But then like you get a little bit further on, Zombie Holocaust, aka Dr. Butcher MD, came out in 1980. Rambo 3, which that's crazy.
Nice.
1984, Dune.
Wow.
Conan the Destroyer in 1984. And the TV miniseries Pompeii in 2007. So like definitely a vast catalog of working on things. I mean, I remember like Conan and Dune, they both had great special effects. So Gianetto definitely, or I guess that's probably the
Yeah,
best
it's
like
Gianetto.
yeah, Gianetto, yeah. But the best way I could say that. But
So
yeah,
Caleb, what
definitely
was your
killing it
introduction? What was your
for
introduction to
Zombie.
zombie? Yeah.
So mine was definitely more recent, probably within like the last like 10 years, I would say. I've been collecting physical media for several years now, and I got hooked into big boxes. I had a few big boxes on VHS, and I just like there was just something about like the big box VHS culture. Like it was just like really cool, and like having like I've always appreciated like physical media, of course, but like a larger item always like enticed me. So like laser discs and CEDs and vinyl. Like those are all things that like are interesting to me because the artwork is all blown up and bigger and stuff. And yeah, so that's just how I got into big boxes. And one of like the more notable companies that put out big boxes was Wizard Video. And pretty much like one of the grails to have, if you collect VHS, is the Wizard Video copy of Zombie. I came across this film from the cover. I think I was scrolling through Tubi like years ago, and it was either Tubi or Prime Video. And this popped up, and this was at the time where like I was pretty much like surface level horror fan. Like I was obsessed with horror, but like I really wasn't like digging into like older stuff. I was just like constantly trying to like fill my brain with like new horror films. So like that was in the time where like I really wasn't like digging any deeper into the older stuff, and I wasn't appreciating it as much as I should have, as much as I do now. And I remember seeing the cover, and I'm like, that's a fucking crazy ass cover, and like that, I'm like, I got to see that based on that. Plus, like, fast forward to now, like probably between this and like Day of the Dead is like definitely what keeps my obsession with zombie films alive. I mean, 28 Days Later, Resident Evil, like over the modern ones and stuff. But like, I definitely, really like zombie films in general. But I watched it and I fucking instantly fell in love with it. I don't know exactly when the time frame would be, but I'd say probably within like the last like, I'd say probably like around like maybe like 2012, 2013 is probably when I saw it. I just like that kind of started this like whole like Fulci, train. I'm wearing a fucking City of the Living Dead shirt. That's another one, the Gates of Hell trilogy, as he calls it, or is claimed to, that's what it is. But, that's like City of the Living Dead, zombie, fucking.
I think it's like The Beyond.
The Beyond, yeah. So, it's just like so fucking good. The soundtracks are always amazing. The soundtrack for Zombie is another one to even talk about. It's really, really fucking good.
Speaking of the soundtrack, I mean, I just want to shout out. We've been talking a lot, Caleb, because you're getting more into the Blu-ray collecting and stuff. And so I have the Blue Underground, the Blu-ray that they released before they actually released the 4K. And this has 4K restoration on it. It's 2 discs, so you have your main feature on one, you have interviews on the second, but then Blue Underground throws in the soundtrack on a CD, which is typically included in these BU releases.
Yeah,
but
I saw,
the crazy thing about these releases, and we actually talked about this when I was on the Stuff episode, is how much physical media is contributing to these movies having a new life. Because watching this movie on this Blu-ray, it looked within 10 years old. It looked absolutely incredible.
So, and in contrast, I watched it through it was Cult Flicks. I have a fucking trial of Cult Flicks now, so for $4.99 a month. But to that point, some of the scenes I couldn't actually see them. They were so dark. And granted, it could have just been my TV settings, to be fair. But but still, there were certain scenes that you actually had to like really, really focus to see what was happening. But to that point, I mean, yeah, they're bringing a whole new life, but a whole new sense of viewership, not just from the person viewing it, obviously, but to the actual way in which you can view the film. Because the way I watched it, it was a little rough at parts, So and that was obviously, probably how most people viewed it prior to that. So yeah, it's a big thing.
Yeah, and that's the great thing though, is that especially Blue Underground, I consider, like, if you want to talk top boutique labels for releases, Blue Underground is top. It's run by William Lustig, who's directed tons of movies. Caleb actually just watched Maniac Cop, so he owns Blue Underground, and they do time and time again the best restorations. And I mean, there was not a single scene in Zombie that I was like, oh, look, a little bit of natural grain fell through, or like, oh, there's a little bit of trouble here. The movie looked flawless beginning
Yeah.
to end, and it actually kind of made me like, man, I really want to pick up the true 4K and see if it's even better, because watching it on Blu-ray, which is still 1080p, I was fucking stunned at how good this movie looked.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, like, I watched it on Shudder, and I would imagine, since Shudder is, definitely like, I know that they have contracts with different release companies, and they are Hello Kitty.
Aw.
They they definitely like put out their films on physical media. I know that they back physical media pretty hard. I would imagine that that's probably like one of the more updated scans that's
Yeah,
on Shudder. And it was, I mean, it was amazing. And I told you guys, off air that this was my first time watching it not on VHS. I
right.
yeah,
know that I tried watching it on Prime Video before, but I think I bought it on Prime Video, but then I bought the tape, and then I was just like, I'm just gonna watch it on that, because that was like right in the phase of like, I was like, I'm just gonna, if it's an older movie, I'm just gonna watch it on tape, like true format, it's original anyway. But that's the whole thing. Like, now I'm really like trying to dive headfirst into the whole physical media realm of things, because, or not physical media, the Blu-ray media, just because like I think that is really like a crazy thing to think about, that like, there are so many films that are getting put out, from like companies like, Vinegar Syndrome and Diabolic and stuff like that, and it's just rad as fuck that like you can watch something like Zombie, which I'd only seen like, on tape, which looks beautiful to me, but then you watch it like this and you're like, god damn, this is a whole different fucking level of appreciation that you gain for it, because like, sometimes you get one of two things that'll happen. You'll either like, it'll spoil some of the special effects because like it's brightened up the scene, or it's kind of toned it up and sharpened it up a little bit, and you're like, I can kind of see the wire. Like, you know what I mean? Or
yeah,
like,
Yeah.
or like the opposite happens. It intensifies the special effects and makes it like just that much more insane and intense, because, it's like you're a more vivid picture and you're not dealing with like fucking total darkness. So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. There's a constant, because I think people say that 4K tends to ruin the look of the movie, because back then it was all about the grain. They're shooting on 35 millimeter, 70 millimeter. There's a certain style that they want. And I think there are companies who over clean and they smooth things out and they get rid of that and they fuck up the transfers, and that does ruin the experience. But for the most part, most studios are restoring the grain and cleaning it up and making it more true to the original vision. Because like Grindhouse releasing, for example, I was sending you guys pictures yesterday.
Yeah.
It was the Pieces release that you asked about, Caleb. They're putting out a movie called Death Game, which was remade by Eli Roth, called Knock Knock with Keanu Reeves.
okay, yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, Death Game has never seen it. Never got a VHS release. Never got a DVD release. This is the first time it's ever hitting physical media. And imagine if we weren't where we're at, that movie would die. It would that film negative would
Yeah.
rot away somewhere. It'll never see the light. Now it is, and that's the beauty behind what's happening with these companies nowadays, these boutique labels.
Well, and I was
Yeah.
gonna just say, because I think you hit the nail on the head for me anyway. And again, I'm very much a novice in anything physical collection wise, unless vinyl, but that's just from shout out the grandparents. But other than that, right? I mean, it's for me anyway. It's much more of a like, hey, if I have an opportunity, yeah, I'll do it. But I mean, I know you guys are deep, like like waist deep into that shit, and I'm just getting my toes wet. But I think that's the bigger thing that you just hit the nail on the head with, or nail, no, yeah, I got it.
Yeah, you got
Either
it.
fucking way,
Yeah,
either
you got
way.
it.
But I think you got it. But the bigger thing I think is to that exact point is they're giving life back to things that would have died, really,
Mm-hmm.
probably 20, 30 years ago, in terms of films that at the time somebody like you and I might go, fuck, what was that movie? Remember this scene with X happened, Z happened, but then there's actual life being brought back with, obviously a much better production value with that, with what they're being able to do with, the films now. So I think that's what's cool about it. And they know their lane, they know their niche with what they're trying to hit too. They understand the following that they have, they understand the buyers that they have. So I think it's a pretty cool thing overall that, how many times do you see interviews with different people who are like, fuck, I didn't even know this film anybody even cared about it,
Yeah.
and now 20,
Yeah.
30, 40 years later, it's still being brought up in conversations like these or in Search of Darkness or something
Yeah.
to that degree. So I think it's a cool thing overall. I don't want to say it's charitable, but it in a kind of a strange way it is to some degree what they're able to put back into these films that largely would have just been in dust piles or
Yeah.
sorting through old grandparents' homes from the fucking 1950s, 60s, and 70s. So it's a
Yeah,
cool
like
thing overall, man.
a good example is like Event Horizon. There's always been a notorious director's cut of Event Horizon, and they've been talking about it since the DVD days. When are we going to get the director's cut of Event Horizon? It's been asked over and over, and Scream Factory put it out last year, and they found some of it. They found like little bits and pieces of it, but it was in such bad shape because the studio just fucking ditched it, and they just weren't able to bring it back. And that's what you lose, unfortunately, over time with the film. So it's miraculous that they're recovering as much as they are.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I mean, like, and then you have like a culprit, like, I wouldn't say culprit, but maybe I'll say culprit. Like the Mahoning, that they're playing the true format, 35s, and they're keeping the films alive in that own. I mean, like they're doing like they have like the fucking. They have what do they call it? Like the trailer terror or something like that, where they just like play like old trailers, like, and then like they'll play like commercials. Like they'll have like a commercial fest where it'll be like old commercials from like old movies and stuff, and or TV shows and whatever. And I think that's rad as fuck. Like it's cool to have all of that, in combination. You're seeing a huge resurgence, but to kind of veer back into zombie, I want to say that this is probably like the quintessential zombie film for me. I mean, I could watch this over and over again and have a lot of fun with it. There's a lot of times where I can have a lot of laughs with it because the dubbing is so horrible, but 'tis the time of Italian horror. And any like horror fan and lover of the genre will take it with a grain of salt and enjoy it anyway, because I think most of the times back in those days there wasn't a lot of films that came out that like were to be taken 100% seriously. There were definitely elements of comedy and then unintentional, which is bad dubbing. But go ahead, Ty.
Well, I was gonna say, I think if no one's ever seen it, and like myself a few days ago, seen it for the first time, and from beginning to end, I didn't realize it was partially dubbed.
Yeah.
So I was expecting full blown, it was just gonna be dubbed, but then Tisa Farrow, who plays Ann Bowles, which funny little thing there, tried to put two and two together, related to Mia Farrow of Rosemary's Baby, which is fucking wild. They look almost identical.
See, you're hitting me with facts I didn't know. Look at that. I love this.
Doing a little Snapple Cat facts over there, baby. That's what I'm about.
He's trying to impress me, Caleb.
That's it, dude. Yeah, just trying to be the big dick in the room, dude. No, I didn't realize that. So when she starts speaking, which by the way, that's the funniest. That's actually one of the funnier parts to me, like unintentional comedy, is when the detectives come into the cabin of the boat and they're asking Anne where her father's been. And she was like, I don't know.
Grilling her.
Dude, grilling her like she fucking and she's like, where did she? He was going to the Antilles and the Antilles, and they're like, oh, we're like, fucking like, literally grilling her about this thing, and it's like, dude, her fucking dad went, her dad went sailing, and hasn't seen her in 3 months. Like, how the fuck? It's the 70s. How is she gonna? What is she gonna fax him? Like fucking send a pigeon with a fucking note.
Here's a carrier, bitch.
Dad, the feds are after us.
Yeah, bro, they were grilling her like right off the bat, bro.
So funny, man. So, and it's like, I mean, even like the character depiction of those detectives, like Fulci's like notice of detail, like especially to do with the like white wispy hair, like super like New York Italian looking detective. Like he hit the nail on the head with that. Like that's who I imagine like a real detective would be in 1970s New York, like fucking just like Saturday Night Live and it, just like walking down the road in a suit. But
I think the dubbing thing came from, if I remember correctly, it was actors from all over the world they would use at one point. Right. So you'd have actors who didn't speak English, some spoke French or Italian or Spanish, and then they were all in one movie. So that's where the dubbing thing came from.
Well, and then you get to the budget background of that film. Now, granted, I don't know. I think it was in. I was reading an article. It was in like quid or whatever the fuck
Yeah.
Italian currency is, but it was like 410. I read it as million, which is clearly not the case. But it was a small budget in the world of Italian currency. But what I thought was crazy about it is they did shoot in a bunch of different locations. So they did actually shoot in New York, but they shot obviously a majority of it in Italy, and then I forget the island. It was Santa something. I think they filmed in.
So
Santa-
according to IMDb, you have Dominican Republic, Mexico, Italy,
Like a lot of
um,
places,
New York.
which I
Yeah,
think, which is crazy when you think small budget. I mean, and a lot of movies at that time were all typically in one setting of like a 50 to 100 mile radius. I mean, he's going international this entire time, which I think is crazy for how small of a budget he was working off of. Now, granted, I think they blew that out of the water internationally with how well the film did upon its release. But that's the part that got me from just looking up and just kind of reading the background of this film is just how many places they went with such a small budget.
Well, Fulci, he was known. He was a very widely renowned filmmaker before he got into horror. So
Yeah.
studios trusted him, and even though like the shark scene was actually filmed in the ocean, like that wasn't a tank, and that was a real shark.
That was
Whoa.
absolutely gnarly. I mean, you can tell, and like upon this last rewatch of this beautiful, fucking like not a tape, but
Yeah.
like being able to see detail, it was great. But like you see the shark and you're just like, that's real. Like that's a fucking shark. Like
It's a great white. That's a
Yeah.
great white. Actually, I don't know if it's a great white.
It was a tiger shark, I think, which is
Oh.
renowned as the most dangerous.
Yeah.
Dude, they're
Yeah.
called they're the trash cans of the sea. They eat anything. Don't ask me why I
Yeah.
know that, but I couldn't fucking tell it was a tiger shark. But
And
I
it's
know
funny
about
because
that.
you could tell because the zombie, whoever played, that stuntman that played the zombie, you could tell his handled sharks before the way he kind of went over the top and grabbed
Yeah,
onto the fins, and then he kind of took a bite out. But her being in there with that shark, I couldn't help but think like that's probably how terrified she fucking is, because I would be
Oh.
shitting myself.
I would be shitting myself, dude.
Yeah,
Fuck
turds.
sharks.
Meanwhile,
waves, bro.
I'm watching it, and I already told this guy's off air. I'm like, I told you this, but I'm watching it going, why are her tits out? Why is her tits out?
Oh yeah.
And she's scuba diving. I'm like, listen, there's got to be some sort of buoyancy. Maybe it gives her a better like move through the current. I don't really know, but
let's just say that
it worked.
there was no other nudity in the film.
Yeah,
Well,
they had to get it somewhere.
There had
There was-
to be nudity somewhere.
I think there was one other scene though. It was oh my gosh, well, I don't know if she's credited or not, but the girlfriend of Dr.
The shower
Menard.
scene. The
shower
shower
Oh,
scene.
true.
So that's the
Okay.
only other, but very tasteful, not
It was.
overkill.
It
in
was.
this
It was.
film.
It was.
No, this was straight up like you watch her rip off the shirt. She's putting on the scuba gear and then
Yeah.
clearly just going
Yeah.
through.
And then there's just like parts where they're just like zooming right in on her tits, and you're just like, wow, this is definitely the 70s.
Yeah, and Peter West over there is just trying to fucking contain his boner the entire
Yeah,
time.
he's just like,
you
wow,
know,
this is so
as-
cool.
which I don't know that they. I don't even know if they explain. They don't even with Peter West especially. You understand that he's a journalist and he's kind of like he's got a hunch about what's going on with this whole boat. Do they really give a true background other than his initial run-in with Anne in the cabin overnight? That like, hey, I know something's going on, and I know you know too. Here's this document, the letter that I found from your father to you. But they don't. I don't know that it gives a deeper dive into why he's involved in that. Do they, or is that really kind of?
Well, they show he talks to his boss in the beginning. They say like a boat.
That's right.
There was a strayed boat found. Can you go over and find it? And then there's that brief scene after he meets her, and they pretend to be hooking up in the boat, and somehow that gets them away from being in a boat. That's
I love that too.
Yeah.
I love that too. That's such
And
a funny
then
scene.
you have him at the phone booth talking to his editor, and he's reading
The letter.
the letter. But
Yeah.
the part that confuses me is if I was with my wife on an island and I'm going to go on a fishing trip, and two random people walk up like, yo, her dad's missing and I really need to get to this island. Do you mind if I hitch a ride with you? I'd be like, no. No.
Yeah, absolutely fucking not. No. Yeah.
And the cab driver's like, oh yeah, there's two Americans here that are going on a fishing boat. Give me $100 and I'll bring you to them, and maybe they'll take you with them.
Yeah, it's so fucked. By the way, boys, I have 3% battery on my phone right now,
Okay.
so I need to plug
go
in.
ahead. Go ahead and
real
give her the
quick,
plug,
so
bro.
keep her running for me, boys.
Yeah,
I'll
I'm
be
gonna
back.
keep. I'm gonna
I'll
keep
be
the
back.
engine running.
All right, cool.
okay.
I'm also gonna take a piss. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, you're fine. Do your thing. But yeah, no, I think the shark scene was like definitely like a pivotal moment. With I think that's like just like really not overstepping, but like crossing the fucking line of like practical effects and like, because I'm sure that there was a way that they could I'm sure there was a way that they could have done that, you know, with like some type of something, I don't know, but like they just went all in. And yeah, I mean, that is like one of the coolest scenes I think to this day that I've ever seen in horror. I mean, like, fuck Deep Blue Sea, you know, like fuck Jaws.
Yeah, and
that was way
like,
more intense.
when have you ever seen? I can't offhand remember, but when have you ever seen zombies eating anything but
people,
like a dog or a people? Like,
yeah,
that was the first time, because that zombie came after her and then was like, "Oh shit, I'm grabbing this thing."
yeah. I was like,
Like,
fuck
I can
that, I'm
eat
gonna
this
fucking
thing.
kill this thing, and then it's just like fucking bites into the shark, and it's like, holy shit.
Now, my question is: do you think the shark became anything afterwards?
See, that's what I've always wondered, and I'm like, damn, like I'm surprised that like in one of like the 10 like follow-ups that like a shark, just like a zombified shark. I mean, we do have zombie shark movies, so
We
maybe
do.
that was where the idea came from. But you know, I think I would like to think that in the universe of the Fulci realm, that there is a zombified shark swimming around somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere. Just,
You know?
I mean, you would never know because there's just regular shark attacks. So
Yeah,
who's to know?
but the corpse would be reanimated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
If you see half a corpse crawling out of the ocean. The thing that
Swimming.
bothers me about all zombie movies, and it happens in here too, is the inconsistency with how long it takes people to become from, uh, like the bite to zombie.
Oh yeah.
There's always that, because there's always like the people who last for days. They're like days, and then there's the people who like they get bit, and then 3 hours later they're up and at it.
Right.
So I'm always, but my other question with zombie movies is, how are they deciding who they're gonna bite and then move on from, or who are they eating, gourmet style? Because they tend to pick and choose.
Very true. Very true. That is a very good point to talk about. And you see it in so many different zombie movies, like especially Romero films, where like there'll be an attack and then they just move on and keep going. I don't know if it's like I think what it might be like a visceral thing where like if anything's alive nearby, it has to die. And then like once the room is cleared of living people, then they feast. Maybe, I don't know, that's just kind of shooting it in the dark, but that's like the only thing that would really make sense to me, because I can't think of a time where like a zombie is like killed one person and then just feasted on them as opposed to attacking the rest. I mean, well, no, I was gonna say Day of the Dead, but when they take what the fuck's the dickhead's name? That gets fucking chopped up. He's in or ripped up into pieces. He's
He
in
gets
our
ripped in half.
intro.
He's just choke.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Choke out of.
God damn. I forget.
Yeah, well, either way, when that happens, that's just, I don't know. I think that's pretty much what'll happen. Let's see. I feel like main characters are the buffet.
Well, you have like,
random
I would think of Dawn of the
stragglers,
Dead,
just a bite and
because
move
I think
on.
of them attacking Flyboy, and it seems that they eat him completely in the elevator, and then he comes back, and then you have like the biker scene where they just tear them to pieces.
Yeah.
So it's very like it's like maybe it's your point where if there's nothing else around, they're like, yeah, we'll just do this. Or if there's many distractions, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, all right, we're just gonna keep going.
Yeah.
You know what else I don't know about zombies too? If they're like humans. So for instance, when they kind of figure when you get to the graveyard scene of zombie and the huge zombie that ends up becoming the face of the actual cover of the
Mhm.
film, like is focusing in on, I believe it's Susan, takes her throat out completely. If you notice, he's not fixated on the people behind him until he's shot in the back twice, and then he's like, "The fuck you say, dude?" And then turns around.
Yeah.
Um, I also wonder too, like, do they have an extra sense? You know what I mean? Are they like, you know, can they hear what's around them, or can they only see what's like immediately in front of them? You know what I mean? That's the other thing too with some zombies, because there's always different amalgamations and formations of what zombies can do in different films versus cannot. Um, with zombie, I'm not really necessarily too sure of that. Like, can they only see what's in front of them? Do they have their other senses? Can they feel something behind them? Like, I don't know. That was my thing, especially with that particular scene where I'm like, I don't know. Can he see what's going on behind him or not? Or is he just so fixated on literally Susan in this case that he's just going to go ahead and feast on her?
Yeah.
But you don't really get the backdrop of that too much with a zombie, because the other thing about zombies too that I think we kind of take for granted, especially of the major movie monsters, there's no dialogue coming from them.
Yeah.
Like a
I think,
vampire,
yeah.
kind of speak his feelings, his thoughts, his beliefs, and his whole backstory. Whereas a zombie, it's completely not that. So it's another interesting piece too. You're kind of left in the gray a lot to sort of do what we're doing right now, which is figure it the fuck out.
Well,
Yeah.
then you have Romero, who really challenged that with Day of the Dead, with
Sure.
Bub, who really started pushing what are they thinking? Like, do they have the ability to think, or are they just lifeless? One thing, which is, I need to eat. That's
Right.
just that. And then Bub kind of explored the intelligence, and then he did it even further in Land of the Dead, where they were able to organize and kind of come to a common goal. They traveled. They learned how to
Yeah.
use. Well, he learned how to use weapons. They
Yeah.
figured out, oh, if I take this big sharp thing, I can break this.
Yep.
And can get through. So Romero, I think, is one of the few people who really challenged. What are they like? Do they have the ability to think? Do they have the
Yeah.
ability to process? So
Well,
it's really interesting.
and it sort of goes into where we were talking about earlier, where like a Frankenstein is almost in a way like a zombie. But if you've ever seen the old OG Frankenstein, there's that scene where he's at the pond with the little girl, and they're like flowers, and he's laughing and he's having a good time, and he's like, oh, he has emotion, he shows emotion, and then fucking, I mean, he chops on,
Yeets her into the lake, into the pond.
but he's not happy about it either. So like, to that degree, there was sort of that formation of like, oh, can the living dead still have those human characteristics of emotion? But to your point, I think Romero was the only one since that I can think of really that's actually pushed that envelope since. Because if you look at like a 28 days later or 28 weeks later, I believe 28 weeks, I think I only saw once, so I'm going off of just pure memory from like being 12 years old. But again, more ravenous, clearly could move much quicker.
Oh
than other
yeah.
Do
zombies.
you guys consider them zombies though?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, they turn instantly, so that's like a different take. You're talking about like, sometimes it's days, sometimes it's, hours. The 28 series is like fucking instantaneous. You're bit and like it's like you fucking collapse, you convulse, and then you fucking
Yeah.
turn. So
Yeah, because I always think of the scene of the guy, the bird, where he looks up and the blood drips into his eye,
Yep, and then he's like, "Oh
and
fuck."
then
Yeah.
Soul sucking scene too, by the way. He's a great character.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
bummer scene.
that was a bummer. Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
'Cause
when I
you're just
think
like, damn it.
when I think of 28 days or 28 weeks later, I think of the helicopter shot right at the beginning when he's the only one who survives and he runs out of the house. And
Yep.
there's that
Yeah.
helicopter shot of him just being chased.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, how fucking scary is that shit?
Yeah.
And I always thought that was like the more realistic viewpoint. If you were to like look at apocalyptic zombified society, that it probably would look much like a 28 days or 28 weeks versus what we know typically as a zombie.
Yeah.
The moving, kind of just, again, one track mind, not a lot going on.
Well,
but
I think we've talked about this on like a different episode, possibly when we did the Dawn Day Land episode. But I got bit by a rabid fucking cat when I was like, I don't know, 16, 15, something like that.
Right.
And I had to go for like the series of shots, and
You didn't
what's up?
superpower? You didn't get
No.
a superpower? Like, I can see walls now.
Well, I had to get a series of shots that were incredibly painful, and there were multiple of them, and it was just horrible.
Dude, you went through that too? I went through the same thing. Did you get like 8 shots in the butt cheeks?
No
Or was
butt
that
cheeks.
Oh, I got like
I think
8.
I think you got something else.
I got raped.
Yeah, I think that's what happened, bro.
Oh, shit.
You're like I browned out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got bit. I got bit on the finger, so they had to give me a shot literally in the fucking finger, like at the where the bite was, and then I had to get a shot on each inner thigh, and then fucking like my biceps, and it was fucking horrible. So, and then I had to keep going back. It was like for 3 months. I had to keep going back like every 2 weeks and get more shots. And it was fucking horrible, but I didn't get rabies. But they explained to me what like happens when you have rabies, and like it's truly the fucking zombie apocalypse. Like without a doubt, it's exactly what it is, because they said that it can lay dormant in your system for up to 3 years. So if you get bit by a rabid animal, if you get bit by any animal, they say that you should like go get fucking know, tested or whatever, But it could lay dormant in your system for 3 fucking years, and it could also show its face within 24 hours. So you have a window of 24 hours to 3 years when symptoms can start, and they say that symptoms start off with like confusion and like. Just like you're just like kind of confused and like a fuzzy brain, and like you don't really understand like what's going on, like almost like dementia type deal. Yeah. And then like paranoia sets in, and you become like almost like really like skitzed out, and then you don't have like a thirst for like blood or brains or anything like that, but they say what usually happens is that like psychosis sets in, and you become irrationally violent, and you'll just start attacking either yourself, inanimate objects, or people. Wow. It really all just depends. And then after that, necrosis sets in, and then you basically like your nervous system will start to shut down, and you'll be fucked basically.
I just think like, Caleb, do you ever get confused about something and then you're like, oh shit?
I never have thought about that, and I'm fucking... Well, dude, I got so many shots that I think that if I got bit by a rabid animal now, that the rabid animal would just die, and then I would just live. Like, I'd be fine. But...
Caleb's like, what was this guy's name again?
Yeah.
You're a... You just start punching the person next to you. Just
fuck! It's the rabies, don't worry.
But 28 weeks later, the wife scene where he goes in to see her... it's his wife. He goes in to see her, and then she bites him, and then he beats her head in, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't he bite her, and then he smashes her face in?
Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
Which is so intense on so many different levels. Like your loved
one. Rage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Total rage. Yeah, I think is it called a rage virus? Is that like in that, like dubbed as such in that movie? Or
I forget what they call it in those films. I forget, because it starts off with monkeys. And there's like there's like a PETA group that like wants to go rescue these monkeys that they're testing on, and then like the scientist is like, no, don't fucking let that one out, don't let him out, and they let him out, and he just bites one, and then that's how it starts.
Yep. So it's known as the rage virus, also simply known as the infection. It's a virulent bloodborne virus that sends its host into a state of extreme uncontrollable rage.
Which is so weird. I remember that. I haven't reviewed that film and looked stuff up about it in like 10 fucking years.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. With me,
Well, we're
but-
still waiting on Danny Boyle to put out. He's like talking about 28 years later now, I think.
Right.
Oh, shit. Let's
Yeah.
go.
All
And
right, let's fucking go.
Let's
well, and I was
fucking
gonna say
go.
too, speaking of another zombie film that we haven't talked about, but I bought a poster of at the previous Monster Mania back in November, Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah.
So just thinking about in Shaun of the Dead that happens in Zombie is where I had left off and went and took a piss and got a charger because I am not well prepared man. Susan gets throat, and then Brian, the boat captain, if you will, / lover of Susan, sees her and is like drawn in by her to the point he gets bit and becomes a zombie. The same thing happens in Shaun of the Dead.
Mm-hmm.
If you remember when they're in the Winchester, and the zombies are coming in, they're pouring in, they're breaking into the bar, and oh my god, I can't remember his name. David with the glasses on his. He gets pulled out by the zombies. He comes back as a zombie up to the front of the Winchester and pulls in the girlfriend, and the girlfriend is there like stricken because it's her loved one. Entrance by the cat gets bit by him and taken back as well. So I don't like a shout out to zombie, or if that's just something that's commonly happening in zombie
Like
films.
a trope, yeah. I mean, I know that there were a lot of references in Shaun of the Dead to previous zombie films. And obviously, it's a play on words for Jesus Christ for Romero. You know, Shaun of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, obviously, ha ha ha.
Dude, not to cut you off, but I feel like we should go back in the log of films. Somebody should, if they can, and pull out all the times you yawn per episode. That would be
a compilation of yawns.
Yeah, just a compilation of Caleb's yawns, and him going. There's literally one yawn per episode that we do where you just go, gee, fuck, like you yell at your. Oh God.
Yeah, no, it does happen. You're
Dude,
not wrong.
rabies.
I mean,
rabies.
it's the rabies. It's the confusion. Fuck. Yeah. Yeah, I think that I'm just a sleepy boy, man. I mean, it's the truth. I'm always sleepy.
Dude, I get it.
But yeah, oh Jesus Christ.
Boom. Brought it back.
Hey, there we go. Well, no, listen. What I want to talk about now is the finale of Zombie, and one of the funniest things that happens in the movie, and I don't know if they realize this, but I sure as fuck did, because it was so fucking funny and made me laugh a shit ton. So I think it's the church or like the hospital that they're in at the end, and like everything, zombies just start breaking in, and like there's like this badass like scene where they're like shooting them and like they're coming through, and it's fucking sick. They start making Molotov cocktails and throwing them, and when
I know what you're talking about.
when they're throwing them, there's no fire. So like they throw them, it explodes, and then they throw another one. There's no fire in the next shot. And they throw it, and it's the same explosion used like 4 times from the Molotov, and then eventually the whole building's just on fire. And you're just like, okay, so each time they've thrown a Molotov, it just didn't go off, basically. It's just super funny.
I was thinking the same thing, because they threw like 7 of them, and it just kept going to the same shot.
It was the same
no
shot.
Molotov there.
Yeah. And it just like, it had me trolling. But yeah, from there on, like, it's just like super intense, and like the scenes are just like, it's just like, I don't know, it's fuck.
Got it.
Yeah, I'm in bad shape right now.
You're coming heavy right now. Dude.
It's 9:12 in the evening, and that would be why I'm this state. But yeah, no, like from there on, like the movie just takes like a very like aggressive turn. Like obviously everyone knows about, you know, that there's just like they're fucked, basically, is how it gets played out. And we have, you know, the epic ending of, which is really not an ending. It's kind of just like, oh fuck, you know, it's like this is going to continue, and kind of leaves it open for interpretation on where it's going to go from here, you know.
Which is interesting about that piece. So when they're obviously Anne and Peter are back on the boat. They're the only survivors from Matula, and they get that radio signal in that obviously they're all taking over New York. Now, I guess it's implied, right? But my question was it the zombie that was shot off the boat of the Hudson River? Did he float or get his way back to land? Was he still alive, and that's how he infected the population of New York City? Or was it something else completely different?
The
Could have
cop.
been a coroner.
Could have been a what?
The coroner. So we're doing. Remember the two coroners? We're working on the cop.
That's right. That's a good point. That could have been that too.
Yeah.
You don't know. It's all implied, I guess. That's a good point,
implied, baby.
Yeah.
I just love in zombie movies, like, shout out those reporters who are just there to the fucking end. They're like, yeah, the whole world's being overrun. They're coming into the studio. They're approaching us right now.
They're standing here just watching us report the news. They're not attacking.
Yeah, they're not.
Fighting me. Yeah, that is so fucking funny. They like no one gets up and just goes. No, that dude's dedicated to his job. That's what that was.
Yeah, they're not like, I'm going home to my family. I'm gonna stay right here.
Yeah.
Gonna...
Currently, I'm being bitten right now.
One of his bosses are like, "I gonna get a raise if he's still alive." This fucker's dedication.
Amazing. I love that.
Yeah, zombies fucking great, man. I mean, I said it on my Instagram. It's the only, in my opinion, perfect zombie film outside of like Dawn of the Dead. Because Dawn of the Dead, I think, is considered the zombie epic. It's just so big,
sure,
it's so good. And Day of the Dead is right there. I mean, Day of the Dead. I think my appeal to Day of the Dead is just Tom Savini's master effect.
Yes.
And it doesn't have the same tension as Dawn. And obviously, because we already know zombies, we already know what they're about. It's kind of playing the same card again. But Zombie is right up there with Dawn of the Dead, in my opinion, as the perfect quintessential zombie movie.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think from what you expect a zombie movie to be, I don't think Dawn and Zombie, I think, encompass everything you want. Whereas for me, I've talked about this on previous episodes, I'm so plot point driven that I like the deeper dive into what the zombie is at its core in Day of the Dead, plus Tom Savini's effects that I think just it pulls it in for me. And Bub is a character, he's just such a standout character of really any zombie movie, to be honest. I think the only standout, to be quite honest with you. But I think from what you expect out of a zombie movie, I think Zombie and Dawn of the Dead have that in, I mean, they offer it a ton. I mean, it's exactly the form that you want it to be in. Whereas if you want to kind of get a deeper dive into, okay, what could the zombie become or what could it be? If you're like us who wants to do that type of research, Day of the Dead for you. But you couldn't just jump into Day of the Dead, though. I think you'd be like, what the fuck is going on? You'd be super confused to some degree.
Yeah. And I think it's super interesting, too. Like, this launched Fulci's career into horror. And from there, I mean, you have The Beyond, you have City of the Living Dead. And same thing with City of the Living Dead. When I was a kid, I remember seeing the stair scene where the girl just starts, she starts puking up her own insides in the car. And I remember watching that on like The Kill of the Day and being like, what the fuck is happening? Like, it was always like Fulci, and then there was a couple like Dario Argento ones from like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen Tenebrae.
Yeah,
where the
so
girl
good.
gets her arm chopped off by the axe and she swings and the whole wall gets coated in fucking blood. And I watched that over and over when I was younger.
So for me anyway, I think I've been much more American driven in my horror history, whereas, I mean, because of this podcast alone, I've actually gotten into more of the foreign films. I hadn't seen High Tension prior to this.
So good.
Yes, so good. But I hadn't seen, for better or for worse, Tormentor episode 4 back in the day. But I hadn't seen a lot of these films. So, and I said this at the beginning, when we first started this thing. I mean, honestly, thank God for this podcast in a lot of ways, because I wouldn't be watching these films, or I wouldn't have a reason to, or I wouldn't probably even remotely stumble upon it, to be quite frank with you. So, it's definitely, for anybody who's watching who's like, I haven't fucking seen this film. Well, guess what? Neither have I until this episode. So, you gotta live through it with me, right? So I think that's what's so cool about it, man. And I think, I mean, not to get all meta here, but I think, shouting out the community in general, they've been very welcoming too. Because I think these type of communities get a bad rap sometimes for quote unquote gatekeeping. But I gotta tell you, I mean, for somebody who loves horror but sort of has been more surface level for most of his life, getting deep diving into things, I mean, it's been a warm embrace from everybody. So it's pretty fucking dope, to be
Hell
honest with
yeah.
you. You know, that's what I'm looking forward to is more of the Fulci, the Argento films that I just haven't seen or touched on that you guys speak so highly of. I'm fucking stoked to watch them, and I know we'll get to them eventually. But I gotta say, you know, Zombie was fucking sick, man. Zombie was a great watch.
Let's go around the table. And I'm Ty, it's your first watch.
Out of 5, what are we saying? Out of 5 what, though? We gotta get creative here.
Out of 5
So there's a lot of
zombified shark bites.
All right. Out of 5 zombified shark bites, I would give this a 4.1 zombified shark bites out of 5. Here's why I said. So for me, I think at its time of 1970, probably filmed in 78. I think the effects are amazing. I think the cinematography of the film is fucking out of this world for its time period. Now knowing Fulci's background, it makes a lot of sense as to why the film was filmed so well. Not to sound in here. I think some of the plot points, again, I'm very storyline driven, which sometimes just doesn't always work within horror, and I have to kind of understand that. There were some gray areas, right, with, you know, some of the things we had talked about earlier in the episode. I still think from a storyline perspective, though, it's a very straightforward film. You can understand why they do the things that they do, why the events are events. You know, I think I'm also having to get used to the dubs. I'll be honest with you guys. I think that's the other thing that I'm trying to work through that, you know, I haven't had to deal with prior. You know, I think the partially dubbing that threw me off at the first 20 minutes, but then I warmed up to it, so it pretty well. But I actually thought the acting was pretty fucking solid, to be honest with you guys. I thought, like, you know,
it is, yeah,
unintentional comedic scenes. I thought the acting was actually done really, really well. You know, shout out Tisa Farrow. I think her and Ian McCulloch, I think they hold those roles down without question. And I also thought too, just the different settings and backdrops of this film were super fucking cool too. Kind of reminded me of Day of the Dead a little bit, because Day of the Dead has a lot of transitions and different scenes and different settings that I liked quite a bit. It also did remind me of Dawn of the Dead, how they're, you know, how in Dawn of the Dead they're sort of trapped in this mall. They're also trapped on this island. So it gave a lot of the same effects and a lot of the same paranoias that people would have if they were trapped in isolation in a small area. I thought it was an awesome film. I'm excited to see other Fulci films as well. I think this is an awesome kickstart to that for me. Yeah, I think the storyline just kind of there was just some little plot holes that I missed or didn't necessarily hit on, but I think another thorough watch through might answer some of those questions. But overall, 4.1 out of 5 for me, guys. Honestly,
love it.
Anyone who hasn't seen it, get ready for the partial dubs. But other than that, it's a fun fucking watch. It's a good time.
Hell yeah. All right, Chris, I'm going to kick it over to you, buddy. What are your ratings on this?
So I think very clearly people are going to know, like, I go 5 out of 5. It's, you know, here's the thing. I think that this movie is more influential than people give it credit for. I think that it's interesting that this was basically supposed to be not a Dawn of the Dead ripoff, but Dawn of the Dead, like, we need to jump on this bandwagon. And that's where this film came from. I think it's really interesting that Fulci came out of doing weird Italian thrillers to make a horror film. And I think the film just works from beginning to end. Like, I think it kicks off so strong. It's different because it reminds me of what Return of the Living Dead did, which is these are the dead rising from the ground. And that is terrifying to me, to think, like, it's scary to think, like, hey, Judy across the street got bit. She's coming after me now. But it's even scarier to think corpses that are possibly hundreds of years old are rising. They're coming out. I don't know how they're mobile, but they're coming out of the ground. And the thing I think I love most is how hard-hitting every single bit of gore is in this movie. Every bite, like, you can almost feel the eye scene. There's so many notorious moments. Just take the poster. just take that one sheet of the main zombie, I'll call it because that's what everybody knows. But just take that one sheet. I think this film left a huge impact, and I think it's great that it doesn't try to overcomplicate it. It's not convoluted. It's
Yep.
very straightforward and it's impactful and it stays with you. So I go 5 out of 5.
Fucking love it.
There you go.
Hell yeah. And I'm going to come in with a hot 5 out of 5 as well. This is my fuck, it's so hard, but I think this might be my favorite zombie film next to Day of the Dead. But yeah, I mean, you guys both hit a lot of the pinpoints that I would hit on. God damn it.
I love it.
It wouldn't
That's
be a rating
four.
without it. Yeah, it wouldn't be a rating
Four
without a
too
yawn.
fucking many.
4. But I will say that anyone that hasn't seen this film, that's listening, watching, go watch this. It's on Shudder. It's on Tubi for free. If you want a physical copy of it, there's a Blue Underground release. There's a who does the 4K?
Blue Underground.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so Blue Underground puts out the goods for this release. And yeah, I definitely recommend that you go check this one out. This is a must watch for anyone that is into horror, likes zombie films, and wants to get a little grossed out.
Hell yeah.
Fuck yeah. Well, listen, we got to talk about something really important because we have forgot to talk about it. Yeah, we have forgotten to talk about it. Maybe, I don't know. But we are going to be at this year's first inaugural Friday the 13th con at the Blairstown Diner in Blairstown, New Jersey. And we are absolutely fucking stoked. So there's going to be a lot of guests there. Goober, it would be wonderful
Goober-
if you didn't bark. He's
he's like,
letting you
"Fuck
guys
yeah."
know. He's hype.
I ride for these guys.
I'm about to be there.
Yeah.
But
Goob's gonna be-
yeah, Goob's gonna be slinging shirts. But yeah, we
Fucking
will be
excited.
there. Say again.
Yeah, I was gonna go. I'm fucking excited because I was gonna go just hang out, but we're the crew.
Yeah,
Part of the crew.
part of the crew. That's it, baby. And we're gonna be doing we're gonna do a live broadcast while we're there, which will be really fun. We're gonna bring some stuff with us. We'll have merch and items and goodies for you to be able to purchase from us. So for anyone that lives around Blairstown, New Jersey, make sure you come out. It's going to be fucking sick. It's May 13th and 14th. We will be in attendance on the 14th. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't go also on the 13th because there will be a list of guests on Friday and on Saturday. We'll have people from previous movies. The lineup of guests, I will pull up now and let you guys know who will be there. But in the meantime, let's see. Here we go. Yes,
Alright,
go ahead.
cool. I was just say in the meantime, so I guess we all have fucking we have the podcast, we have the Tapehead animals. Now we got Chris's cat, we got Goob. I don't have an animal, so I'm just shouting out the listeners for a second. Hey, send your recommendations in. What animal should I get?
There you
I
go.
need to have. I don't have one, so I need something to be a part of this crew. So everybody, it's animal.
My dog is here. He was in here earlier, but yeah, I have a little pit that looks exactly like Caleb.
They do look similar.
I think we get a pit, so we just kind of commit the trifecta there.
We will. We will. That's what we'll do.
Adopt.
So for guests, we have Lauren Marie Taylor. She will be there on the 13th only. Sean Richards will be there Friday and Saturday. Ron Milkey will be there on Friday. Deborah Voorhees will be there Friday and Saturday. Tracy Savage will be there Saturday only. Ron Sloan will be there Friday and Saturday. Haley Greenbauer will be there Friday and Saturday. Bill Randolph Friday only. And Carol Locatel will be there Friday and Saturday. There is events on Friday that include vow renewals with South Jersey Jason, which will go from 1:30 to 2:30. So if you're interested in getting your vows renewed, there you go. From 2 to 6, there will be an alumni signings and photo ops. Ron Milkey in costume photo op at 5 to 6. Brown Panties photo op with Lauren Marie Taylor from 5 to 6. And dinner with the Friday the 13th alumni from 6:30 to 7:30. A Q&A session with the alumni from 7:30 to 8. And then from Friday the 13th part 1 and 5 screenings with the alumni from 8 to 11. That's the Friday itinerary. For Saturday, we have 1 p.m. is the costume competition. 2 to 6 will be the signings and photo ops. Dinner will be from 6:30 to 8. Friday the 13th part 3, the Memoriam documentary with Sean Richards, will be from 7 to 8. From 8 to 8:30, it's a Q&A with Sean Richards and Tracy Savage. From 8:30 to 10, fanboy screening with Deborah Voorhees, Tracy Savage, Ron Sloan, and Haley Greenbauer. And from 10 to 11 is 13 fanboy Q&A with Deborah Voorhees, Tracy Savage, Ron Sloan, and Haley Greenbauer. And yeah, it's going to be sick. Blairstown Diner will be providing the dinner for both days. It will be buffet style, offering different options each day. Menu options will be posted soon. So definitely very excited for this event. It's going to be gnarly. We're excited to be there as guests and as a part of the event, which will be our first con that we will be doing as the Tapehead Massacre. And like I said, we'll have merch, we'll have goodies, we'll have all kinds of stuff. So that is what I have for you guys there. Another important one that we have to talk about is we'll be having a guest on in 2 weeks. So not next episode, but the following episode, we will be watching Tourist Trap with Mia Wallace from Dark Shade Films. We're very excited to have her on. It's gonna be rad. We're excited. And for next week, that's what we do have to decide on. Now, Chris, we gotta figure out when you'll be able to. You'll be going away. You're gonna be in Texas.
Texas.
Ow, goddamn.
Yeah, so I actually leave for Texas Sunday at 3 a.m.
Okay. Oh, Sunday.
So I leave Sunday at 3 a.m. I believe I might be free Friday night.
Okay.
I think. But yeah, I will be gone until Thursday. So I'll be gone Sunday. I'll be gone the 3rd to the 7th.
Okay, so we could probably get in something on Saturday then, maybe, if everyone's free.
What are we thinking?
Well, that's what we gotta, or Friday night, yeah. We gotta figure that one out. We do have to figure out what we're going to be watching for next week. So.
Ooh. Well, listen, we got the. So here's the thing: we don't have to, and we've made this fallacy a time or two where we said we're gonna watch something on the episode, and then we go, nah, fuck it, and then we do something.
I like this idea. I see where you're going. Let's not say we're gonna do something, and then we'll just do it.
We got the group chat about it. We'll see what happens of it, and we'll give you what you fucking want next week. And if you don't like it, fuck off. No, I'm just kidding. But
fuck it.
Fuck it, dude. Fuck it. No, we'll be fine.
We're doing it live.
We'll do it live. As always, as I always say, if you guys have any recommendations, things we haven't watched, things we've talked about watching but maybe haven't gotten to, let us know.
Any Spotify users, anyone that listens to us with Spotify, there will be a section. I don't have Spotify, so I can't tell you where the fuck this is going to be at on the app. But there is going to be. We will be asking you questions, and you will have the ability to answer them within the Spotify app. There will be a general question of what movies should we check out, with an additional one that pertains to the episode. So there will be a zombie little questionnaire for this week's episode. So just make sure when you're done wrapping this up, don't do it while you're driving, or fuck it, whatever you want to do. But live your life. But yeah, make sure you check that out on Spotify. For Apple Music or Apple Podcast users such as myself, we don't have shit like that, so you're beat. So just talk to us on Instagram. That being said, leave a review. Make sure you rate, review, subscribe on whatever podcast platform you listen to, because that shit really does help out. It's very cliche. All podcasts say it, but the reason that we do say it is because it helps us get our show in front of more ears and eyes. And every time you make a review and you do a rating, it puts us a little bit higher on the scale for more people to check out. So it is important. We do ask of you to do that if you would be so kind. But all that being said, I want to take a second to shout out some homies. The Bad Taste Video Podcast boys. Straight fucking homies. Harflicks and Guitar Picks, another fucking banger of a podcast. Make sure you go check him out. He always has fucking cool ass guests from different bands on talking about horror movies. And then make sure you check out Neon Brainiacs, another fucking good movie podcast. Those dudes know what's up with good stuff. Make sure you check out Ghoul on Ghoul podcast. They have a really sweet paranormal section that they talk about that's always fun, and they're just a good listen to in general. Make sure you check out Laser Graves. EK is the homie. So make sure you go. They're just an 80s podcast, so it's not generally around horror all the time, but it's an 80s horror or an 80s podcast in general. So make sure you check out all of the friends, all of the homies, and yeah, listen, I'm Caleb.
I'm Tyler.
And I'm Chris, and I just want to quickly shout out overall guy on 55 with the pillow. I'm fucking coming for you.
Coming for you, bro. Watch out. You better stay off them roads. Stay off them fucking.
God damn it. Well, listen, this has been another fucking episode of the Tapehead Massacre podcast. We thank you guys for coming in every week. And stay tuned for episode 30, which will be out next week, the big 3-0. We're excited. And you'll see what it is soon. And we'll catch you guys then.
Later, babes.
Later.
By the way, I should say that the last bit when I